Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's another draw preview and prediction video, and we're going to be going over the ATP 500 Rotterdam tournament, which is an indoor hardcourt tournament. Cannot wait to get into this one. Before we do though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thank you to all our members as well. You guys are absolute legends for contributing to the channel as always. So thank you so much for your support. Okay, let's get into this then. So, a few omissions from this tournament due to the Australian Open and some players pulling out. The most notable of those was Yannick Sinner, who was the defending champion. However, we do have in his stead, well, not as a replacement, but instead as the number one seed, Carlos Alcaraz. We also have some really good players in the field, such as Stefanos Tsitsipas, who got a wild card and came into the event. Daniel Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, to mention a few, and we'll get into the detail, of course. But we have been potentially, anyway, we have been stolen of a Carlos Alcaraz Yannick Sinner matchup on an indoor hardcore, which I think would favor Yannick quite heavily. But it's interesting to see Carlos, of course, not play that golden swing in Latin America that he's played in the past on clay. He's going quite hard at the hard courts this year, it seems, and really wants to commit to, I think, honing his craft on the indoor hard courts, which is arguably his worst surface, I would say, so far in his career, in his short career, and very decorated career, that is. Okay, let's get into it then. So, as always, we're going to break down every single match from the first round. I'm going to go into some of them in detail. Some of them I'll just pick my winner, because otherwise we'll be here all day. Then we're going to go through every single round, and ultimately I will give you guys my predicted champion. So as I mentioned, Carlos Alcaraz is the number one seed. Had I would say, from his standards, I would say a disappointing Australian Open, but came up against a very inspired Novak Djokovic. He'll be looking to really make a statement here in Rotterdam to the rest of the field after underwhelming start to the year. Botic van der Zandschulp, though, is in his way. And of course, we know that he convincingly and surprisingly beat Carlos Alcaraz at the US Open last year. And that was an incredible match in the early rounds of the tournament. Carlos Alcaraz was stunned and didn't really know what to do. And on an indoor hard court, this could potentially be an upset. It could be. Botic has a wild card. He's playing in Netherlands, his home, and he will be fired up for this. Carlos is going to have to come out straight away in round one and play some good tennis. If he doesn't, it's going to be a very tough match, and he could potentially go out in the first round. I'm going to go for Carlos to get revenge. I tend to think that the top players on tour, they can lose to anyone at any given point. It can happen. The stars can align, someone can redline, and their level, the top players, that is, can drop at a given moment. Of course, it's possible. But what I find improbable is for that same result to happen again, especially not so soon after, but in a relatively short span of time, especially consecutively. So you'd hope that Carlos has looked at that defeat in the past. I'm sure he has. Also thought about how he could have approached it in a different manner. I'm sure he'll be thinking about what he needs to do better on indoor hard courts, period. Going into this match, I'd be surprised if he doesn't come out and plays some really solid tennis. I think that will be enough to beat Botic. That's assuming he doesn't redline. But if he redlines, Carlos's 7 out of 10 level should be enough, in my opinion. Felix Auger-Aliassime plays Andrea Vavasori. Felix, of course, just won another indoor hardcourt tournament this week or the week just gone, and he loves an indoor hardcourt. He really does. So I'm going for him to beat the qualifier Vavasori. He's coming into this in great form as well. Pedro Martinez plays Roberto Batista Agut. I'm going to go for Pedro Martinez to get the win there. Holger Rune. Well, he lost to Medvedev in the Davis Cup, and it looked like he was not in the best of form, but of course we saw him relatively push Yannick Sinner at the Australian Open. He was the only other player, apart from Tristan Skulkate from Australia, to take a set off the eventual champion Yannick. And For Holger, this is a really, in my opinion, I think this is quite a big year for him. Last year, Yannick and Carlos split the slams. This year is now his time to really stand up and be counted and say, look, I'm in the mix. The way to do that is to win titles, is to go deep, at least at the Grand Slams if he's not going to win one, and really start notching up some top wins. Sonego, of course, we saw make a really good run at the Australian Open, of course. Made the quarterfinals, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, of the Australian Open, losing to Ben Shelton. And for Holger Rune, this is a really good opportunity for him to take some form that he had at the Davis Cup, because as I mentioned, he did lose to Medvedev. Denmark were 2-love down or 2-0 down. They recovered thanks to Holger Rune's heroic efforts and won the tie 3-2. So he will be taking a lot of confidence from that, I'm sure. I'm going to go with him to beat Sonego. Rublev plays Zhang Zhizhen. Now, Rublev, losing in the first round to João Fonseca, the really talented young Brazilian. For Zhang, he is a very solid player, really solid player. And I've been quite impressed, actually, with his level the last year and a half. He's not broken into the top 20 or top 15, but he just seems to be a very consistent player in the early rounds of slams. And I think that's been a very positive thing for him. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to kick on from there. But so far, he's been a solid player on tour in the top 30, top 40, top 50 mark. Rublev, I'm going to go with, though, for the win. I think he will surely be hungry to get over the Australian Open loss. And of course, he played the week just gone, didn't quite go his way as well, lost to Kovacevic. And he would have been looking to make a deep run and make the final, potentially win that tournament as well indoors. Jan Struff plays Fabian Marozsan. Look, this is such a good matchup. Both these players are big servers. Struff loves coming to the net. Marozsan has played some good tennis at the start of this year. I'm going to go with Struff, though, to get the win. Lehechka and Poprin, another really good matchup. Two big serving players, big forehands. Lehechka, you could argue, has the better all-round game. Poprin probably has a bit more firepower from the back of the court, especially on serve. I'm going to go with Lehechka to get the win there. Kaboli and Hurkacz, the great clash of styles. Hurkacz, great server, really good hands in the net. Kaboli just extremely solid, high topspin game. Indoors, this should favour Hubie. He hasn't been playing great, though. I'm going to go with him to get the win. Arthur Feast plays fellow countryman and qualifier Kostan Lestian. And I'm going to go with Arthur Feast. He just had some decent results for the Davis Cup. He's a really talented young Frenchman. Lestian has been solid at the start of this year. I saw him. He likes to post, results of it's normally just losses where he puts an X, and I felt that was quite a negative from him. And I said to him, look, don't worry about that. You should also make sure you highlight the wins that you have as well, because you're notching up some good wins. And he started doing that. And he actually replied to me in his Instagram DMs and said, thank you, mate. And I was like, yeah, of course. He should. He's got a lot to be proud of. But I'm going to have to go against him, unfortunately, because I just think Arthur Feast is, he's a real talent, isn't he? Kovacevic, who's been playing some really good tennis this week, gone. Look, do I go with him to beat the big serving Frenchman who's got the best serve on tour? I'm just thinking. Surely not. He had a good week in France, really good. Kovacevic beat Buster in the qualifiers. Goffin, Bellucci, Bublik, Rublev, and then lost in a final set tiebreaker to Felix Auger-Aliassime. So that, to me, just shows how his level has been through the roof this week, because Felix is I'd argue, top 5 indoor player on tour, just specifically indoors. It'd be great to see him at the ATP Tour Finals, because I actually think he'd do really well there. He just loves the indoor conditions. Although they have slowed it down at times, but last year was very quick, and I think he would have loved it. I'm going to go with Pericard though. I just think his serve indoors is deadly. It's going to be really tough for anyone facing him indoors. Bublik and Mensik is a fantastic matchup. Bublik has, well, I hate to say it because I really like Bublik. I do. I think personality-wise, the game is entertaining, no doubt. But he has been a little bit disappointing. I have to be honest. And I get him wanting to enjoy it. I get him wanting to not put a lot of pressure on himself. That's fine. I just don't feel like the level. And I know this is a crazy word to say in relation to Bublik, but the consistency is not quite there. And it is a little bit frustrating when you know that he can piece things together, but he just almost stubbornly doesn't want to. I think Mensik will get the win here. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Bublik just hasn't been hitting the heights that I think we know he can. David Goffin and Alex Dimona. Dimona is going to be too solid there. Tsitsipas should get through qualifying Mayo. And Berrettini Greek Sport. Greek Sport is really good indoors. He's going to be at home as well. Berrettini, though, big serve, big forehand. The slice as well is going to be potent on indoor hardcourt. Matteo, I think, to get the win and spoil the party. I'm actually going to go for a qualifier, Mattia Bellucci. I was impressed with him in the Wimbledon qualifiers. I'm going to go with him to beat wildcard Rotgering. And then I think Medvedev will get the win over Wawrinka. Stan has a big game, but Medvedev is fresher, younger, indoor hardcore. He'll be hungry as well after disappointing US Open, so I think he'll get the win here. Okay, so round of 16. So that would mean that we'd get Carlos Alcaraz, Felix Auger-Aliassime, round of 16 match. Felix, of course, has beaten Carlos Alcaraz a couple of times in the past. I'm going to come back to that one because Felix is very good indoors. This is a tough one to pick, if I'm being honest. Any other surface, I'd go for Carlos. Hardcore, grass, clay. Snap of fingers, I'll probably go for Carlos, depending on obviously the form beforehand. But more often than not, Carlos. On an indoor hardcore, there's just something about Felix's level is so much higher, and Carlos's level dips. So the question is, do those levels kind of meet in the middle and it's a 50-50, or is it a case of actually, okay, Carlos's level drops and Felix's rises, but is it still not enough to close the gap in skill level, if that makes sense? I'm going to go for Rune to beat Pedro Martinez and Rublev to beat Struff. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go for Struff to beat Rublev. I'm going for it. I'm going to go with surely Hubi makes a run at some point. Does he beat Lehechka though? Backhand to backhand, that'll be interesting. They both have got very solid flat backhands. On the forehand side, Lehechka's a lot more aggressive, a lot more potent with that wing. Serving wise, her catches are better server, better hands than that, I'd argue, but Lehechka's got a pretty good serve in his own right. I'm going to go Lehechka. And then Feast and Mpeshi Pericard. That would be a great match. Really good friends, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Come back to that one. Mensik Dimona. I'm going to go for Dimona. Tsitsipas should get through Berrettini. And Medvedev should beat Bellucci. Could Mensik beat Dimona? Berrettini could definitely beat Tsitsipas, but I'm just going for Tsitsipas to try and make some moves. I mean, indoors with the one hand is going to be interesting. I guess there's not going to be outdoor conditions, but don't be surprised if you see some shanks from him on that backhand. Arthur Feast and Mpeshi Pericard. I'll go for Pericard. Indoors. Carlos Alcaraz, Felix Auger-Aliassime, sorry, even. I'm going to go for Carlos. So quarterfinals, I've gone for Carlos Alcaraz, Holger Rune, Struff and Lehechka, and Mpeshi Pericard and Dimona, and Tsitsipas and Medvedev. Now, Alcaraz and Rune, now look, hear me out here. Hear me out. This is an interesting match. Rune has won an ATP Masters 1000 tournament indoor. And that year that he did beat Carlos, it was 6-3, 6-all tiebreaker, and then Carlos retired. They played once before in the next gen finals, and it was 4-3, 4-2, 4 love Carlos. That was a year before. And that would have been indoors, I think. And at Wimbledon, Carlos won in straights in 2023. They didn't play in 2024. I'm actually going to go big here. I'm going to go for Holger. I'll explain why. It's a bit cool. It really is. I just have a feeling that Davis Cup win, and it could be, you know, it could be recency bias. The Davis Cup win, the fact that it's indoors, the fact that Runa would have seen Carlos potentially struggle again. Well, he did struggle against Novak, seeing Sinner and Carlos win last year, pushing Sinner I would say more than any other player at the Australian Open as well. I think he will be confident going into this match if he gets to this stage and if we get this matchup. And I have a feeling that he might pull out the bag because indoors, I think he's more natural on the surface. And it'll be a tough ask. It will, but I think he could get it done. Struff and Lehechka. By the way, any other surface, I'd pick Carlos. Clay, grass, outdoor hard. But indoor hard, I'm telling you, just something about it. He's just still not particularly comfortable. And I'm not. That's not to say that he's not a good player. He could easily, absolutely steamroll every single opponent in this draw and win. Because if you look on paper in terms of caliber of player, he's better than all the rest of the field. Simple as that. He's won 4 slams. No one else has in the field. We've got Stan in the field. In his prime, he's still only won 3. So, we have to acknowledge that he is, despite being 21 years old, he's the most skilled player in this lineup. But that's not to say that he's invincible. Then I'm going to go for Lehechka to beat Struff, and I'm going to go for Dimona on Pericard. I'm going to go for Pericard to beat Dimona. I'm going for a big run from Pericard. Then Tsitsipas and Medvedev, what an incredible rivalry that has been, although Medvedev has been beating Tsitsipas quite convincingly in the last number of matchups and hasn't really had that same fire. I think indoors is going to be difficult. On a clay court, I'd pick Steph, but I think indoors will be Medi. So Medvedev to get the win there. That gives me semi-finals of Runa and Lehechka and Pericard and Medvedev. What a random set of semi-finals from me. I'm going to go with Runa to be Lehechka, and I'm going to go with Medvedev Pericard. Be a great match, That would be please, can we get this semi-final of Pericard and Medvedev? Medvedev standing 5 meters behind the baseline. Pericard 7 volleying, hitting that disgusting slice serve out wide. And Medvedev will try and adjust. He'll be hitting laser returns. It's going to be incredible. He'll be trying to grind to the back. Pericard trying to shorten the points. It's a great clash of styles, honestly. Fantastic clash of styles. I really hope we get it. And I'm actually going to go with Medvedev to beat Pericard. And that gives us a final of Holger Rune and Daniel Medvedev. Rune will have to play some really good tennis if he's to win this final. Really good tennis. Because Medvedev will just continually push him, make him play ball after ball after ball. And Rune is going to have to be the proactive one. The head-to-head is 2-1 in favor of Medvedev. They've played only once on a hard court. They haven't played on indoor hard before. Medvedev won in 2024 last year, Indian Wells, 7-5, 6-4, so very close. I'm going to go with Rune. I've got a feeling, that doesn't mean anything to be fair, but my gut feeling is telling me that Rune is going to make a big run, and I think he'll be able to do it at Rotterdam. I think he'll take the title, and hopefully it'll propel him forward in a positive way for the rest of the year. Let me know in the comment section below what you think and who you think is going to win. What are your favorite matches as well for the first round? And what potential matchups are you most excited about? Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you on the next video.